Karen cut off my sick kid's air conditioning, so I installed a giant industrial fan instead. Part 1. Some stories begin with fire. Mine started with heat and the woman who wanted my daughter to suffer in it. My name's Zachary Rhodes. I'm a single father and electrical engineer. My daughter, Lily, is 12 years old, and she's been fighting a rare autoimmune condition that makes her hypersensitive to heat. Even mild summer temperatures can trigger migraines, nausea, or worse. After our apartment's HVAC kept failing last year, I cashed out part of my retirement, left the city, and bought a fixer-upper in a quiet neighborhood called Cypress Point Commons. I wanted calm. I wanted air that worked. I wanted space where my little girl could finally breathe without sweat soaking her sheets. We lasted 11 days before Karen arrived. Karen Bellevue, late 50s, sharp voice, pale pink lipstick always smudged at the corners, and a laminated badge that read Cypress Point HOA Compliance Director clipped to her cardigan like she worked for the CIA. She showed up while I was tightening the brackets on our new mini-split unit, a whisper-quiet, energy-efficient system I'd custom installed outside Lily's room. She didn't knock, didn't say hi, just walked right up behind me and barked. That unit violates our front-facing aesthetics code. I wiped sweat off my brow and stood. Excuse me. She gestured at the AC unit with the flair of a magician revealing a corpse. This eyesore is visible from the sidewalk. It disrupts uniformity. I blinked. Ma'am, my daughter has a serious medical condition. That's her bedroom. This unit is the only reason she's sleeping through the night. Karen smiled the way someone does right before they slap a puppy. Medical hardship doesn't override HOA visual policy. I suggest you relocate it to the back of the house within 72 hours or face daily fines. I tried explaining. I showed her a doctor's letter. I offered to build a custom screen to hide the unit quiet, tasteful, cedar wood. I even volunteered to plant shrubs around it. Karen narrowed her eyes like I'd asked to paint the house neon orange. We have standards, Mr. Rhodes. We don't make exceptions. If we do it for you, we'll have to do it for everyone. I swallowed my frustration. Karen, this isn't a paint color. It's my kid's health. She tapped her clipboard and turned away. 72 hours. I didn't move the unit. Instead, I emailed the HOA board, attached Lily's medical documentation, cited 80 accommodation guidelines, and even included zoning ordinances showing I was within city code. No response. But 2 days later, I came home from a grocery run and found the unit ripped off its brackets. Wires dangled like nerves. Freon hissed into the summer air. Next to the destroyed unit was a laminated violation notice, Karen's name printed at the bottom, signed in blue ink. Lily was curled up on the living room floor, pale and shivering with ice packs on her neck. I heard metal. Then it got hot. So fast. Daddy. That night, I held her hand through a migraine so violent she vomited 3 times. The ER was an option, but I knew they'd just cool her down, run fluids, and send her back home to the same heat. I didn't sleep a minute, and by morning, I'd made a decision. Karen wanted to control airflow. Then I'd give her airflow she could never control. Part 2. By dawn, I was pacing in my garage, blueprint paper spread across my workbench, fury burning hotter than the broken AC unit Karen had left behind. This wasn't just personal, it was engineered malice. That woman didn't want compliance. She wanted control, and she didn't care who she hurt to get it. So I did what I knew how to do best, build a better solution. I dug through my archived projects from the renewable energy firm I used to contract for. Among them was a prototype I'd helped design for warehouse cooling, a high-efficiency industrial axial fan system, typically used in dry storage facilities and aircraft hangars. Quiet, powerful, and most importantly, oversized enough to cool half a city block if positioned correctly. The one I had in mind, 12 feet in diameter, galvanized steel blades, and capable of pushing 30,000 CFM of airflow per minute. Karen wanted my daughter to suffer because of a visible AC unit. Fine, I'd build something that moved the wind itself. I spent the next 2 hours on the phone, First with my friend Kenny at Powerforce Equipment, who owed me a favor from our consulting days. Then with an industrial shipping yard in Riverside that agreed to rent me a fan for a 2-week trial on the condition that I'd transport it and install it myself. By noon, I had a delivery ETA, a list of safety codes, and one hell of a challenge. That evening, I made sure Lily was resting comfortably in Ava's, my sister's, house. We set up a portable air conditioner there, where no HOA could touch her. Then I returned home and got to work. The fan arrived 3 days later. It came on a flatbed truck with orange hazard tape and a team of 2 to help offload it, even wrapped in canvas. It was massive. When we uncovered it, the sun caught the curve of the blades and glinted like the wing of a jetliner. My next-door neighbor, Raj, peeked over the fence. "Zach, what is that?" I grinned. "Justice." Karen wasn't far behind. She stormed down the sidewalk in her baby blue jogging suit, squinting like I'd personally invited the apocalypse. "What is that machine? You can't put that here." "Actually, I can," I replied calmly, handing her a printed stack of documents. Noise rating, well below city decibel limits. Zoning classification, considered temporary equipment. Usage medical air circulation compliant with ADA cooling standards. She shoved the papers back at me like they were radioactive. "This is harassment. You're weaponizing airflow." I tilted my head. "Is that worse than ripping out a child's air conditioner?" Karen's face went pale. "You'll be fine," she hissed. I smiled. "You're not a real HOA. Karen, you have no fine authority. I've verified it with the county. If you touch this fan or send anyone to interfere, I'll file a restraining order and a civil suit so fast you'll be explaining it through a lawyer." She stood there for a beat too long, then walked away. But she wasn't finished. Not even close. The fan installation took 2 days. I anchored it into the ground using weighted cement barrels, added a filtered intake screen, and powered it through my own solar array with a redundant generator backup. It wasn't just functional, it was beautiful in its defiance. When I flipped the switch for the first time, the blades turned slowly, then built momentum until a low, thunderous hum filled the air. A breeze rolled through the yard like a desert windstorm turning cool. Curtains fluttered, leaves lifted. The temperature dropped by 10 degrees in under 5 minutes across the entire backyard. It was enough to keep Lily cool for as long as she needed it. But Karen retaliated. She filed a noise complaint with the city. When that failed, she called code enforcement claiming I was running unauthorized industrial machinery in a residential zone. The inspector, a tired-looking man in a sun hat, came by during the afternoon and reviewed every document I had. "Well," he said with a shrug, "you're not violating anything. In fact, you've been more thorough than most HVAC contractors I deal with." I offered him a cold lemonade. Karen watched from her porch, arms crossed, boiling. Later that week, I got a letter in my mailbox. Not official, just typed. Printed on cheap inkjet paper. "You think you're clever. The neighborhood is watching. We know what you're doing." I held it up, walked into the driveway, and taped it to the fan. Beneath it, I added a post-it. "Then bring sunscreen. It's about to get windy." The story started to spread. Raj posted a video on Instagram titled "When HOA Karen Bans Your AC, But Your Dad's an Engineer." It showed the fan slowly rotating, then panning to Lily smiling and waving from a shaded spot beneath a patio umbrella. It went viral in 3 days. Local reporters picked it up, then a national HVAC blog. Then a disability rights group reposted it on Twitter with the caption, "This is what advocacy looks like." Karen, she exploded. She demanded I take down the fan for public safety optics. She called the fire department. The fire chief said it posed no hazard and actually reduced heat stroke risk in our part of the neighborhood. When that didn't work, she accused me of operating a business from my home. She sent a man tall, wiry, clipboard in hand to my door. He claimed to be a private investigator. "Miss Bellevue wants confirmation that this device isn't part of a commercial cooling operation." I stared at him. Deadpan. "It cools my daughter's lungs. Not lettuce. Get off my property." He left, but I'd seen his car he parked in front of my neighbor's house. and the neighbor had a doorbell cam. I had what I needed. Karen wasn't just harassing me. She was violating privacy. Again. Part 3. The problem with people like Karen isn't that they want order. It's that they believe they are the order. And when the world stops obeying, they panic. Karen was panicking. The giant fan in my yard wasn't just blowing air. It was blowing the lid off her fake power. She couldn't find me, couldn't shut me down, couldn't even get the city to play along. So she tried something else fear. The man she sent clipboard, khakis, fake investigator vibe turned out to be her nephew. According to the footage Raj's Ring camera captured, the guy circled my driveway twice, took photos of my garage, and peeked through the back gate. He wasn't subtle. I submitted the video to the sheriff's office. When the deputy showed up at Karen's house to ask questions, she accused me of harassment. "You're turning this neighborhood into a circus." She yelled at me from across the street later that evening. I stood in my driveway, arms crossed, fan blades turning behind me like a slow thundercloud. "I'm just trying to keep my daughter cool. Karen, you're the one sweating." That night, I heard something outside, a strange grinding, metal on metal. I rushed out barefoot and found the fan's anchor barrels cut open. The steel straps I'd secured around the base had been tampered with. One of the support braces was bent out of alignment. I had installed a motion-triggered floodlight above the unit. It had been unscrewed, disabled, but they missed the backup, a solar-powered trail camera mounted in the bushes. At dawn, I checked the footage. There she was, Karen, hood up, flashlight in one hand, bolt cutters in the other, caught red-handed, standing 2 feet from the fan, mid-sabotage. I sent the footage to my attorney in the local precinct. By 10 a.m., an arrest warrant had been issued for vandalism of private medical property and endangering a minor through malicious damage. The irony in trying to prove her dominance, Karen had just made the state care. News spread fast. Karen was arrested mid-morning, in a bright yellow sun hat and house slippers, screaming at 2 deputies while waving a folder of citizen complaints like they were a get-out-of-jail-free card. They weren't. The story made the evening news. Fake HOA leader arrested after sabotaging. Cooling system for disabled child. The caption was brutal. Public outrage was instantaneous. Thousands of comments poured in online. "This is disgusting. What kind of monster cuts off a child's air? Let's raise money for a real HVAC system. She needs prison and heat stroke." Within 24 hours, a GoFundMe started by an anonymous parent in the district raised $42,000. I didn't even know about it until Lily walked in holding my phone. "Dad, are we famous?" Karen posted bail, but she didn't come back home. Her nephew picked up a few bags and a small dog the next day. The house sat quiet, curtains drawn. Her clipboard never returned to patrol, but the damage was done, not to us, to her. In the following days, 3 other residents came forward. Mrs. Benitez said Karen forced her to remove a wheelchair ramp for her husband because it lowered curb appeal. Another neighbor, a young gay couple, said she threatened to fine them for displaying a pride flag, saying it wasn't seasonal. The third, a war veteran who used a mobility scooter, Karen tried to bar him from parking it near his porch. Each one had proof, letters, photos, handwritten warnings with her name signed at the bottom. Camille, my attorney, gathered the statements and filed a civil suit on behalf of all of us. The charge: systemic harassment under false authority. Meanwhile, my industrial fan kept spinning. We made it fun. Lily nicknamed it Big Breezy. Raj installed a thermometer under our shared fence, and every day at noon, we'd measure the temperature differential between our yard and the rest of the block. Ours, a steady 76 degrees. Even on the worst days. Karen's old property, 91. Poetic. The HOA board, what remained of it, tried to distance themselves. Turns out, Cypress Point Commons HOA had never been legally incorporated. Karen had filed to represent it, but never finalized the nonprofit paperwork. It wasn't even registered with the county, meaning every violation she'd issued was invalid. Every fine she threatened was void. Every form fake. She was a paper tiger with a megaphone, and the megaphone had just been yanked from her hands. At the next town meeting, I was asked to speak. I didn't prepare a speech. I brought Lily. She stood next to me, small, quiet, her fingers curled around mine. My daughter was targeted because someone thought rules mattered more than people. I said, we followed city law. We paid our taxes. We kept to ourselves. But she still came for us. She came for others, too. This wasn't about property. It was about power. Then I looked at the board. You don't have to give people like her power. You can say no. And if you don't, people like me will build that no. Applause. Some standing, even the mayor, who'd stopped by to observe, clapped. The vote was unanimous. The HOA was disbanded. Its mailing list was deleted. Its signage removed. Its rules burned, symbolically, in a metal barrel behind the rec center. Raj even roasted marshmallows over them. Karen's court hearing was held 3 weeks later. She pled no contest and was sentenced to 18 months probation, a formal apology, and 100 hours of community service, ironically, to be served installing window units and portable cooling devices for low-income families. The judge looked her in the eye and said, maybe now you'll understand the value of mercy in a heat wave. As for us, the GoFundMe covered a full house HVAC upgrade with dual zones, air purifiers, backup battery power, and a small community cooling station we installed at the edge of our lawn, open to anyone in the neighborhood who needed relief during hot days. Lily, she sleeps peacefully again. And every afternoon, she walks outside and waves at Big Breezy before sitting under the shade to read her favorite books. Part 4. You'd think when the battle ends, the war ends with it. But in our case, something better replaced it. After the court ruling, after the fan went viral, after Karen disappeared into whatever gated community still tolerated her, our neighborhood changed. And it wasn't just in spirit, it was in temperature, in attitude, in airflow and awareness. The first change came in the form of a letter from the county. They offered to partner with our block as a pilot zone for adaptive climate infrastructure, low-income AC grants, storm-proof power backup, and shared cooling installations. I'd become that guy, the one they asked to sit in meetings and help draft policy. We called the project Cool Justice. Raj joked it sounded like a superhero squad. Maybe it was. Big Breezy stayed up for weeks after the court hearing. Not because we still needed it, but because it had become a symbol. Teachers brought students to see it. Local HVAC companies started using it as a case study. A civil rights professor asked if he could include our story in his ethics curriculum. Every time I walked past it, I'd smile, because while Karen had tried to control the air, we'd made it move, and it didn't stop there. Other families started speaking up. People who'd been silently bullied by fake HOAs and rogue neighborhood committees shared their stories online. One woman from Texas posted a video called, "My HOA tried to ban my daughter's medical tent, so I turned my lawn into a protest garden." A man in Arizona designed custom lawn flags that read, "My home, my health, not your business." He shipped over a dozen to our street. One morning, Lily asked, "Dad, why do people keep taking pictures of our house?" I crouched beside her on the porch. Because it's more than a house now. Sweet pea, it's proof of what that one person can push back, and others will follow. She nodded, then asked, "Can we paint Big Breezy pink?" So we did. With glitter paint, the community cooling station we built became a mini oasis. 2 benches, a misting pole, a filtered water tap, and shaded seating with a solar fan open to anyone. We mounted a plaque on the stone base. For the kids who need shade, for the families who speak up, for the people who said enough. Underneath it, Lily had added in Sharpie dedicated to kids like me. A few months later, I got a call from a woman named Carla, a city planner from Sacramento. "We're launching a statewide initiative for accessible cooling." She said, "We've read your story. We want you to consult." I told her I wasn't an activist, I was an engineer and a dad. That's exactly who we want, she said. So I went. I helped them write ordinances that would make it illegal for HOAs or neighborhood groups to interfere with medically necessary cooling systems. I testified in front of a subcommittee, holding up a photo of Lily next to Big Breezy, both of them grinning in the shade. Meanwhile, Karen's name faded from memory. Her house was sold, repainted, and quietly reabsorbed into the neighborhood. The new owners, a young couple with twins and a giant inflatable flamingo in their front yard. They hung wind chimes, painted their door lime green, and never once got a violation? Good, because the only rule now, don't be Karen. The final decision came on a balmy spring afternoon. Lily and I stood in the yard. What do you think? Kiddo, I asked. Time to retire Big Breezy. She squinted at the giant fan. It was still painted glitter pink, still humming softly on standby mode. She placed her hand on one of the braces. I think she's done her job. So we powered her down, took her apart, and donated her to the County Emergency Cooling Reserve for wildfires and heat waves. They said they'd rename her the Lily Unit. These days, our house is quiet again. But the silence doesn't feel like fear. It feels like peace, like knowing the battle ended in the right place. Not just because we won, but because we changed something deeper. The air moves freely here now, not because of a fan, but because of the people who decided they'd had enough of being told to shrink. We didn't just cool the air, we cooled the anger. We rewrote the rules. Sometimes I still catch neighbors slowing their cars as they pass. They wave, smile, some point to the plaque, take photos, leave thank you cards in our mailbox. One simply wrote, "My daughter breathes easier because of your daughter. Thank you." In the end, Karen's legacy wasn't control, it was catalyst. And in trying to shut us down, she lit the match that brought a whole block and eventually a movement into the light and cooler air. The end.